Hello friends and welcome back to Generation Pixel. My name's Stuart and today, well, I've been thinking about the international divide. Well, the international divide when it comes to video games. And to be more specific, I'm talking about the American, or more aptly, North American divide compared to the, well, Scottish divide. But for Scotland we have to, maybe move a little closer. Yeah, no, closer still. Yep, keep zooming, and there. Now the divide is nothing to do with the size of the countries, but merely to do with geography, and more importantly, the types of machines that were more popular in each of those different zones. Now what got me thinking about this was watching some fellow creators on YouTube. The first one being the Electronic Emotions program, who just happened to have posted a video of him playing QBert on the Atari 2600.
Atari to play QBert, probably my original copy, not this awesome Parker Brothers cartridge version.
And secondly, we have D-Linky, or more specifically D-Linky and the Alley Cat, who recently uploaded some gameplay from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade version. And of course was playing it on the North American popular NES system.
So this is the follow-up to the video that we just did on Turtles #1. This actually came out in the arcade and was pretty much the best thing since sliced toast.
And finally, there was Brew United. Now Brew didn't upload any video footage of the actual game, but he did in a pickup video show that he'd bought for the Nintendo Entertainment System, Airwolf.
Atari Warriors. That was first pickup. Next pickup, Airwolf. It's a show from the mid-'80s as well, I believe. My memory to this week is shot. So much going on.
So the image of these three games floating around my mind sparked the thought, well, why not show these North Americans what we had to play on back here in Scotland, and to be fair, mostly in Europe. And of course for that, I will wheel out the ZX Spectrum and show each of these games side by side so we can all have a look at the comparative differences and weigh up who exactly had it better. Before we get to the gameplay, let's roll those titles. Okay, so first up I'm going to give you Ocean's Pogo. Yes, I know, it's not exactly QBert. Well, it was a QBert clone, but it was the closest we ever got to in the ZX Spectrum. We were supposed to have an actual licensed QBert, but unfortunately Parker Brothers pulled out at the last minute. So this is the best of what we were left with. So now let's take a look at some Atari 2600 QBert. Straight off the bat you'll notice that the graphics on the Atari 2600 were much more blocky. Don't get me wrong, the characters are still clearly defined, but compared to the ZX Spectrum, they lost just a little bit of finesse. Where the Atari 2600 does win points is sound. Now the Atari 2600 sound isn't great, not by any stretch of the imagination, but the ZX Spectrum was never designed to be a games machine, so things like sound were never a consideration while the machine was being developed. Overall, I might be a little biased when it comes to the ZX Spectrum, but I did prefer the graphical look. So for me, the ZX Spectrum definitely pips the Atari 2600 to the post here. Moving on to game number 2, I present Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or should I say Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, as for some reason in the UK the word ninja was a dangerous word. And firstly, let's take a look at the graphics, because they are quite unusual. To me they look like a graphic novel playing out on a computer screen, and quite frankly to me that was a very interesting look and still is today. You will also have to note that it's, well, monochrome. There's only 2 colours ever used, and that was due to the ZX Spectrum's limitation when it came to using colour on screen. Now the machine did boast 16 colours, well, if you include black and white, but of all those colours, you actually only had 8 colours, with a light or a dark variant. And of course the real problem was colour blocking. What the ZX Spectrum did when it came to colours was have essentially 2 layers. So if you had a green turtle walking past a yellow wall, you would have the blocky outline of the green turtle, causing what some people would call major artifacting. As for sound, let's not go there. Again, until much later on in the ZX Spectrum's life cycle, sound wasn't really a priority, nor was it something that the developers could really come to grips with. Don't get me wrong, they did in the future, but unfortunately for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, sound wasn't quite ready yet. So let's have a look at the NES equivalent. Look, okay, I'm not going to waste anybody's time here. The NES Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is far superior to anything that we saw on the ZX Spectrum, especially at the time. You can see for yourself, the graphics were spectacular. Almost arcade coin-op perfect. And the sound, well, the NES chip was pretty much famous for the sound. And as much as I loathe to do it, I will put both of them side by side so we can have that one final look, just to see how well the NES compares to the poor 8-bit microcomputer from the UK. The final of the 3 games is of course Airwolf, and interestingly enough, we have a game that's not a direct comparison, as we see from the footage here from the ZX Spectrum. The Airwolf game that we had over here was more of a maze arcade shooter puzzler. I know, quite a mouthful, but that's exactly what it was. You had to fly Airwolf through a maze of tunnels in this complex cavernous structure, avoiding enemy turrets and trying to work out how to get past the many various security measures put in place to stop you from progressing. So let's have a look and see what Nintendo did with Airwolf back in the 80s. Okay Nintendo, we get it. You had superior graphics and the sound was fantastic, but let's just get to the gameplay, shall we? Now I don't think I'm being biased here when I say the gameplay is just not a patch on the ZX Spectrum's gameplay. Here we have a very basic afterburner Top Gun cockpit point of view shooter. The graphics are yes, okay, but nothing special. Look at the ground, look at the sky, they're plain blocks of green and blue. And then, what's the main goal? You dodge the enemy aircraft, you pop down onto the ground, you rescue a hostage, and you fly them away. Repeating the same cockpit view shooter, dropping off the hostage to end that part of the game. And for me, the ZX Spectrum might not win on sound and it might not win on graphics, but certainly when it came to gameplay, it had the better Airwolf game. So let's just have a look at them side by side. So there you have it folks, 3 comparable games from each side of the pond, and not only that, 3 other content creators for you to have a look at. Now if you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe and definitely like, but more importantly comment, because comments drive YouTube. Can't say any clearer than that. So until next time, thank you very much and bye.